day 63 of 365 days of realizations. To start with, an interesting little intro note is that I got a nudge to change it to 365 days of remembering. So this is a process that I am intending to last a year, 365 days. I started on January 1st, 2020. And so I want to follow that nudge. It seems as if the first, 60 days, 2 months was about realizations, which is interesting. To me, a realization is something that we lined up with so that our inner knowing and the reflection matched. So it kind of popped like a spark, like when you realize something. And it is very similar to remember. So what's funny is now I feel pulled to shift into the remembering place. And what I feel is being called for is just being really, really conscious in my inner space, in my inner knowing, in my inner landscape, in my inner work. And I recently heard something from Bentino Massaro. Without drawing it, it's hard to explain, but that anything that goes beyond the I am and your point of view is outside of you. So if you take your cue from anything other than those two things, and even point of view is questionable, then it's the wrong place, and so to speak, to take it from, because all of that other stuff is the illusion, is the reflection. Doesn't mean it's not valuable, because it is. You just don't want to automate the process. You don't want to automatically take your cue from something outside of yourself and then just start moving, because then in essence you're creating by default, even if you think you're being conscious. So for just a couple minutes, I was just going to explain that a little bit more. So in essence, anything beyond the I am and the point of view, which means thoughts, beliefs, emotions, past experiences, expectations, what I actually see in front of my face that is calling my attention, history, who I think I am in the sense of like a person, like I'm someone that's always on time, or I'm someone that's always late, or I'm someone that's really well organized, or I'm someone that's in flow versus someone that's really structured. Like all of those things, though they have value, they're not the things that we should be taking our cue from, because what we want to take our cue from is the clarity and the knowingness of who I really am, that I stand in the space of being an infinite being of creation, created by creation, to then expand upon that creation by creating more and more and more through this channel, through this essence, through this expression, so that I can express that creator energy, that infinite one energy, that source energy. And I have this beautiful partner, my inner being, right here, ready, not only to make the magic that creates it, lining up all those cooperative components, but also that constantly holds the best creation I can come up with, constantly calls me, come back to union with me, come back with me, come back with me, and together we will manifest your life. Together we will see the reflection that is the best match for what you want to see in the world, for what you desire to experience, for what is going to expand you most and grow you most, and what's going to be of most service to the most other beings here, which in essence are just aspects of my own self. So for that reason, that feels like more of a remembering process. Interesting. I mean, remembering feels more of like a call to go inward and sort of tune into the things that were already so well known, the things that we came sort of with imprinted into our beingness that are just waiting. And so it almost feels to me like all the realizations that I have been coming to over the last 60 days have now stirred some energy points inside of me. I've talked before about like the little bursts of light points sort of inside that then can take us to going, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. But sometimes it's helpful to have those realizations, to bring our vibration into a clean place, into attunement, into alignment with our inner being, and in essence then with our bigger theme-based desires, our source soul-based desires. And when that happens, then it's like we drop in to that remembering, and we just, then it's like it's done then. So the realization, the remembering together kind of swirl up. And I feel like that's the delicious, juicy place that I'm in, which takes me to the next thing that was the main focus, I think, of what I was going to talk about today, which is stepping more deeply into a new paradigm. Call it shifting parallel realities, call it stepping into a more fuller expression, the newest called for expression, which I called myself to, which I am then creating into being. But this way, this intricate little way that we dance as both a person and source, because we chose to come into this three-dimensional, this blendingness that we're being invited to, is very interesting, because it's like you got to vibrate it, you got to trust it, you got to flow with it, you got to follow the inspiration from your inner being. Those are all the things that then take you to finally seeing that reflection that matches the vibration that you emanated. And it's the clarity, it's the clearness, it's the pristineness in knowing that that vibratory emanation that you're sending out is attuned, is aligned with any possibility. I mean, I've been playing with the idea that instead of thinking about the thing I want, and then how do I best line up with the vibration of the thing that I want, what if I just decided that I was going to be in union, be in attunement with my inner being, who is the epitome of source, who is my closest base point to source, but embodies all that source represents. So in essence, through her, I am connecting to all of source, to all that is, to the power that creates worlds, to my creatorship, to all of that stuff. So if I just attune to that vibration, then the actual desires almost become irrelevant, because in that, everything that is most poignant for me, most poignant for my blueprint, my theme, my plan, whatever you want to call it, most poignant for my highest expansion, for the soul expansion, for the soul space to grow as much as possible in this lifetime, all of that then becomes available to me and activated. So where I really want to go with this is that when we stand and have some experiences, and we get to a point where we're on the spiritual path, and we start to realize in a realization moment that, wow, like I really am doing this. Like I really do have an influence on things. It is true that I can create. It is true. Like I manifested this, and then I manifested that. And sometimes they're little tiny manifestations, like a parking spot, or magical having more money than you thought you had always in the bank account, or the perfect rendezvous with someone that had the thing for you, or that magical book, or maybe it gets bigger and it's like a relationship, or the perfect house shows up, or the space to live, or the people to stay with, just on and on and on. And so these things start happening, and you're like, yeah, I'm starting to get this. And as you start to dive even more into it, and you're like, I am unstoppable, I can create anything I want, and you're sort of moving at what seems like an epic, super accelerated speed, and then all of a sudden it feels like the brakes get put on, and there is a jarring sort of feeling of, I don't know if I can do this. Like the thoughts start rushing in. And they rushed in a little bit with those smaller things, but they were easier to hold because they were quicker to manifest. They were light. You didn't really, parking spot, who cares? I mean, I'll park here or there, but it's fun when it happens. Or, it's like, how many people are so lit up by manifesting 1111, 1111, or 333, or 111. It's just interesting because it is a reason to celebrate. It's such a small, insignificant thing that it's easy for that to come. We could let everything else come as easily as that if we just believed it. So anyway, we're going along, and we've decided that we want to manifest something bigger, and there's a stopping point, and it's filled with these doubtful beliefs. And what is interesting is we often then think, well, what do we think? What do we think it means when that stopping sort of happens? Well, we often think I've done something wrong. We often think I need to clean it up. We often think maybe this isn't the right thing. I think that's what happens a lot, that people misinterpret the feeling of like it being stopped as meaning I'm going in the wrong direction, which is slightly amusing, because when you know that you're infinite and when you know that you create everything, then why would you put yourself in the path of starting down something and then deciding part way there that it's not what I really want? I mean, that is plausible, but my guess is if that was the truth, then it wouldn't feel like this contraction. It would just feel like the next logical step, and you would just shift and go. I mean, there may be a tiny little bit of like, well, why did I go that way to then go this way? But if you were really, really conscious on this path, then you would have a recognition that something just shifted and now you have more clarity, that you were still sort of getting clear on what your true, fullest soul space-based source desire was. So really, when you feel it like it's a jarring sort of stopping, like these sort of limiting beliefs come rushing in, and often what happens is people, they dip out, they stop, they don't continue to follow that train because those thoughts were just too much. There was too many of them and they took them. And so it only takes one thought. Remember that. It only takes one thought. If you think it long enough, it will activate itself as a belief, and then more and more and more thoughts, beliefs, constructs, everything will come up to present to you all the reasons why the thing you think is impossible, why you're reaching too high, why nobody's ever done it before, why it's going to be so hard, why you're not ready. Not ready. That's often the number one none. You're not ready vibrationally, and you better not tell anybody about it, because then it might suggest that you're not spiritual. So I want to flip that, because here's the thought. What if instead of it being all of that, it was just as you raise your vibration, and we've all heard this in spirituality, that as you raise your vibration, it makes sense that whatever doesn't resonate at that new higher vibration would pop up to be seen, because you can't keep those limiting beliefs, those lackful beliefs active and still live in the space of that vibration. So that would make sense. So I love that Bentino says that it's like you put on a coat. And I like the coat thing, what he uses, but I also liked this idea of a box, because we can all relate to this. We all can think of someone that we think that just lives inside a box. I mean, you can get boxed in by beliefs, you can get boxed in by simple little thoughts, you just get boxed in by like, I want to have a comfortable life, or I just want to feel safe, or I'm going to stay at that job because it's predictable. And we hear this a lot with like relationships, like I'm just going to stay in this relationship. It might not be everything I ever wanted, but it's comfortable, it's safe, I know what to expect. So they've sort of boxed themselves in, and then every belief they have kind of frames the box, right? So they can't even imagine how to get out of the box. Sometimes they don't even know they're in the box. So you are walking around, we all carry this sort of little box around with us, and we look through, say, a window from inside that box, which is clouded by the same thing that the box is made out of. That's how we see the world. And so when we step into this place of knowing we're creator, we bust through a whole bunch of boxes, sometimes rapidly, and we almost don't even notice it. The analogy wouldn't even apply because we're going so fast. But then all of a sudden we get to a certain point where now we're in a new comfy box. Maybe it's that I'm a spiritual being, I'm an infinite being, I can do anything. I'm going to line up all my beliefs, I know how to do this. And then, boom, something shows up. We think that it means that we have stepped beyond what we're capable of. And still, we may or may not know that there's a box. But what I'm saying is the box is not telling you, or the banging into the edge of the box is just an invitation to say, okay, yeah, you hit a box and you are living your whole life box inside a box, 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 most of which you didn't choose. You bursted through a whole bunch of them, and now, boom, you banged into one. And so what are you going to do with that? You're not going to say, well, that means I should go back and get into my other boxes, or I should stay inside this box. No, you're going to say, when I feel something that feels like it's off, that feels like negative emotion, that feels like lack, that feels like a calling to say, stop doing what you're doing because you're on the wrong track, or you can't do this, or you're not ready, that instead we stand more fully in our clarity of knowing that we're the creator. And we see it simply as that we've outgrown the box, so to speak. And I love the possibility of that we just don't live any boxes. We just burst out of every possible box. And I don't know. I think it is plausible. It is possible to do that. I think that we get such fun out of bumping into the boxes and pushing them through. And so I want to take this into like a real world example. So every time that I have contemplated starting a business, which has been, well, ever since the time I was a child, I remember knowing that I wanted to help people, that I wanted to, I guess it started out with like inspire and motivate, and then it moved more into like be like hold space and reflect and see the best in others and share what I've come to know, because I think that words don't teach, experience teaches. And so the number one thing, though, that helps is we reach for experiences that we have a reference point for. So sometimes when we hear someone else, whether it's a friend, a family member, just we read it in a book, it's a spiritual teacher, or just another teacher, or someone in our vicinity says something to us, there is a potential that it goes, and there's something lights up one of those remembering lights. And when that gets lit up, then now we've opened the possibility to call that experience to ourselves through a creatorship, so that then we can have that experience ourselves and feel the truth of it. And maybe sometimes in a much less jarring way than if we had never heard of that possibility and it had just come to us. So for example, my first husband that passed away, it transitioned about 9 years ago. That, to me, in it, living it, seemed like harsh a little bit, at the time. I don't have that anymore, but it was a little jarring at the time. And so now when I share that experience with other people and I share some of the techniques, some of the ways that I came to move in that, to actually see it as one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it really helped me to put my perspective back into alignment. It helped me to understand that I am the chooser of my experience. It doesn't matter what that circumstance is. It doesn't even matter how bad it looks. It doesn't even matter how much everybody else thinks that you should have a response to it, that ultimately that choice lived within me. And so just using this as an example, somebody else could hear that from me and glean it, and then not have to actually have the same depth of experience that I had, because they learned it, or they didn't fully learn it, but they were exposed enough to it to see the potentiality. So that then when something less big comes, like maybe they're in a relationship that just stops feeling good, they realize that that person, they're looking at them to make them happy, and they want to realize that they're the only person that can do it. Or something happens at work, or just on and on and on. Some smaller thing happens, and because they gleaned that little piece of the puzzle from me, from my experience, they can move through it in a way that doesn't have to feel nearly as jarring as if it was some other type of shocking experience that would take you to the same place, maybe even faster, but it doesn't need to look that way. So I love the idea that when we share from our own experience, no, we can't just sort of take that learning and give it to them and plop it on their head. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But we can open up some possibilities for them to then experience in a more gentle way the same understanding, the same learning, because now they're prepped for it. They're ready, they're primed, they see the potentiality of it. And my other example is, as I was saying, so my whole life I felt like I was being called to do this sharing, to do this uplifting, I don't know what else to call it, like teaching. That's just, even when I was a teenager, that's kind of what it felt like, that I wanted to help, and then I wanted to teach. And I really wanted to teach from the things that I discovered, like as an explorer that had gone out and I created a map, and now I'm going to come back and show everybody else the map. And it's just always felt really good. But what's happened is, over the course of the last, say, well, he died 9 years ago. So let's say it's been like 8, 7, 6, it's been getting more and more intense, has been this pull to start sharing this, to make this into a business, to own it, to stand it in and say, you know what, I am going to do this. I am going to teach what I've come to know. I'm going to embody it. I'm going to own it. I don't know if it's going to have a huge impact or a little impact or no impact, but I just feel like this is what I need to do. And it doesn't matter. One person shifted, one person helped, and I already have evidence that that is true just in my day-to-day life. So I want to do this thing. And every time I would get there, I would bump into something, like as if I was bumping into that inside of that box, right? Like some feelings of unworthiness, or who do you think you are? You can't do this. Like it really felt like a sort of, almost like it was tangible, like this thing, this energetic thing that was blocking me. And I would just retreat. That's what would happen almost every single time. As soon as I started to retreat, evidence came rushing in from my physically based life that proved my point. So my biggest example is that I have 4 kids. As soon as I started to have the doubts come up, as soon as I started to feel like I can't do this, as soon as I started to feel like, no, who do you think you are? It's way too complicated. You don't have the resources. You don't have the smarts. You're not techie, whatever it was. My kids would start to need me more. My kids would show me evidence that that's right. I should just still be a mom. I should stay focused on my mom. They need me. Their dad died. This is what I need to do. And I would just go right back into that. Not because it's true. Not because it was true. Even though they looked like they needed me, they were responding to the vibration that I put out, and they were just my excuse to not continue, to not push out of that box, to push into the new paradigm, which is what is being called for. And that is the truth, that we can move paradigms just like that. We can move parallel realities just like that. But how many times do we hold ourselves back? Because when something feels off or feels sort of hard, the only thing we're supposed to remember is that's right, it's only showing up as feeling hard because we're not looking at it in the right way, not because we should stop. We need to just realign and keep going. And that's the space that I stand now. Like yesterday, deciding to buy that program, deciding to really put myself first and foremost, to own it, to stand here in this video and tell you the story about how for my whole life, I have felt like this is why I was born. And not to care, not to look for any of you to say, okay, great, that's wonderful, yes, you are. Why would I need that? I feel it. Like the voice inside of me is so powerful, is so strong. The calling that I feel to do this is like visceral. It's like I can taste it. It is what I am here to do. And so now I'm going to stand and own it. And I busted through the box. And I am in the essence of saying, let's bust through all those boxes because I want to hold this space of being doubtless. I want to take on things that the matrix has said you can't do, has to be done a certain way. We're also into this incremental, slow, how long is it going to take to get to where I want to go because we're stuck in lack. What if we weren't? What if we just believed that I can have whatever I want? I can create whatever I want. I can inspire as many people as I want. I can shift as many people as I want, not because I am doing it, but because I'm activating their wanting of it, their willingness to do it. They want to play with me. That's all it is. This is all just a game. It's all just an illusion that I am looking to play with it. And part of my theme is to play. And like, I want to help other aspects of my own self shift. I want to help you and you and you and whoever wants to play this game to feel more remembered, more realized, more the creator, whatever it is that they're asking for. I just want to meet that asking, not because there's something that I know that they don't know, but just because I'm holding the space so I can watch them remember. And together, we're just going to swirl in that. The program that I picked is the perfect match for me, not because she's better than I am. That's not it. It's because residently we match and because it's fun to grow together. It's fun to expand together. It's fun to see someone outside of you hold whatever it is that you need to be held, whether it's a skill, whether it's a belief, whether it's a way of being, whatever it is. It's so exciting when that gets put in front of your face and you get to see it as a tangible thing and then you're moving in it and you're being guided to it. That's the thing that I am so excited about. So I say, let's bust all those boxes, get out of lack, get out of limitation, and trust that we can be doubtless, that we can be sure-footed, that we can be confident. And all of that is good, that we are just owning the power that was ours. We're owning, I want to be a conscious expression. I know, no doubt, absolutely, I am doubtless in the knowing that I am a physicalized expression of source energy. Like, I just know it. I get goosebumps. It's true. It's true. You're one too, and you're one too, and everyone is one. We're all physicalized expressions of source. So given that information, how do you want to show up? What do you want to express as source? Source, like source that is unlimited, has access to anything, can create anything, created you, created us, created everything else, created our ability to create. Why would source create us to create, but then put caps on our creation? That just doesn't make any sense. So it's up to us to own that and to then decide consciously to be the highest, biggest, most epic expression that works in line with us, that works in line with our soul space, but is that most epic expression of source, of the infinite one, of God, of creator, whatever you want to call it, whatever feels resonant for you. So I'm going to go march myself along on my walk and go home and do this work that I am going to do, that I feel born to do. And I will see you tomorrow as I keep keeping on. 365 days of remembering. Ha. Remember, it's just a game. Don't take it too seriously. We're just playing. It's just for the fun of it. And remember that you are a creation of the infinite one. Like, just dazzle in that. Just fly in that. Just be in that. I mean, that blisses you out just to think about that. And that the creator loves its creation. The infinite one loves the piece of infinity that you are embodying. That's it. Just because you embodied it, just because you're being it. I don't think I need to say anything else. So, mwah.